I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Beacon Patrol and its expansion, Ships and Shores, from Pandasaurus Games. Beacon Patrol is a 1 to 4 player cooperative tile laying game where the goal is to place all your tiles down, score as many points as possible, then check that little back of the rulebook and see just how well you and or your friends did together. What you're going to be doing in this game is every single turn you're going to be placing tiles out onto the grid and then moving your ships around. Now you're going to get a certain number of motors and tiles depending on the player count. In a 2-player game, for example, you're going to have 3 of each, but this is all in the rulebook. It gives you the exact number of motors and tiles you'll have. And then again, you are placing those out onto this shared grid over here and moving your boats around in order to fully explore tiles, thus getting points. Specifically, you're going to get points for every single explored tile. An explored tile is a tile that is surrounded fully on all 4 orthogonal sides. Orthogonal is a fancy word for not diagonal. But anyway, so once you have 4 tiles around a tile, that tile is explored, it is worth a point. Unless it has a buoy over here, in which case it's worth 2 points. And if it has a lighthouse, it's worth 3 points. So it's worth 1, 2, or 3 points, depending on what's on the tile, if it is fully explored. So for example, let's pretend red's taking a turn over here. They'll go ahead and place out their first tile, and maybe they'll go ahead and place this down over here. Automatically, you're going to go ahead and move your boat onto that new tile, and you do have these motors to help you navigate. At the beginning of the game, you usually don't need them until the map starts to expand. From there, we'll place our second tile out. And over here, let's say we'll take this one and we'll put it out over here and move over there. There we go. We place our second tile out over here. There we go. Boom, and move down over there. This person's going to move their tiles all the way so we can actually see everything we're trying to do over here. And then lastly, we'll go ahead and place our last tile. Although once per turn, you could do a swap with another player. You can swap one of your tiles for one of theirs, possibly giving you more flexibility as far as reasons why you might want certain tiles. So for example, I'm going to swap with this boy over here to place it down over here because I think that's likely to be fully explored and be worth points. I'll go ahead and draw up over here, and it's going to be the next player's turn. So now blue's going to take a turn, and they're also going to try to get their tiles out. So again, for example, over here, keep in mind, I didn't need to use my motors at all. If I wanted to, I could have, for example, ended my turn by flipping this and moving over here to hopefully start somewhere else and then reflip my motors at the end of my turn. Again, you will need those more as the map expands. At the beginning of the map, you're not really going anywhere because it's a very small board. Once you have a giant map with a 7x7 grid or whatever mix and holes you have going on there, you're going to need your motors more than you possibly know at that point in the game. Anyways, back to over here. Blue has to go. Now blue could go ahead and place this out like so. That's not bad over here. Maybe they'll go ahead and do that. They'll move over there onto the tile automatically like we discussed. But then they'll go ahead and use their motors because I want to show you how this works. They're going to go 1, 2, and then they're going to swap this tile with this tile over here. And they're going to swap that in order to place this one down over here. And then they're automatically going to move on to it. And in fact, maybe, oh no, I may have messed this up. When I was over, you see that this is the problem. Now I have nowhere to place this tile. I made a mistake over there. Although I could have swapped this tile in with there and then placed this tile, because I could have done that swap instead, and then I go down into this tile, and then maybe I could have my turn by going back up here, but I think I like being over here to hopefully circle around. So right now, if you notice on the board, we still have no fully explored tiles because no tile is fully surrounded on all 4 sides. So let's go ahead and take one more turn before we talk about some more things going on here. In fact, I actually have this tile, which we'll swap out because that's an expansion tile, which we'll talk about in a second. Anyways, back to red's turn. Red's going to go ahead and take their tiles. Again, they could swap with blue if they need, 1 swap per turn. And let's go ahead and fully surround this tile because that will hopefully start giving you an idea of how you can score points for things, although I can't fully surround this tile because no tile has an edge there. So I'm going to use my motors over here. I'm going to use my first motor, and I'm going to move down over here. At that point from there, I could go ahead and place this down over here, automatically going down over there. Then I could, let me see how I want to do this. I might just go ahead and spend a motor to go back up 1 and then place this tile out over here, and then of course fully explore that as we normally do. And then I'll go ahead and swap with this side over here and then place this tile down over here instead. Which means at this point, for the first time on this board, we have a tile that is scoring points. It took all these tiles to score a single one tile. This one tile is fully surrounded on all 4 sides and is going to be worth 2 points. Now I'm not going to keep going, although you would keep going. You would keep going through this entire stack of tiles over here to score as many points as possible, but that's the general idea of the base game of Beacon Patrol. At the end of the game, you'll score up everything. There are 2 mini expansions that are included, and those will adjust the score you're trying to go through because they give you more ways to score points. But let's go ahead and get to the big expansion, Ships and Shores. Ships and Shores is going to incorporate, it's going to utilize the mini expansions that are in the base game and then add a bunch of new ones. There's going to be a bunch of these cards. I believe there's 7 7 of them. Each of them gives you a different new tile type to add to the board, and when you take these cards, each player playing is going to take 1 card. Now the tiles are going to give you a new way to score points that are applicable to everyone because you score the game together. Versus the cards give you a specific ability that's different for you. So for example, right now I have the pilot ship, which this ship doesn't move when it places a tile, but that also means you can place a tile across land, meaning normally if you're over here, you can't place a tile on the side because you have to move to a tile when you go there. But if you're playing with the pilot ship, because you don't move, which is possibly a downside, it gives you less freedom of moving around the board, although again you still have your motors, you could go ahead and place this directly across there, which normally you can't do. So there's an upside and a downside there, but gives you more flexibility. Our construction ship over here is going to introduce a bunch of windmill tiles to the board, and whenever I place a tile, I can go ahead and refresh a motor, giving this player a ton more flexibility as far as how they move. Now remember, the abilities you have are specific to each player. These scoring modifications, for example these windmills, are going to score a point for each surrounded windmill, each explored windmill, as well as a point for each adjacent open body of water. An open body of water is a tile with no land on it. So for example, if the windmill were over here on the ship, it would be scoring 1 point for itself and then 1 for these 2, although reminder, it does have to be fully explored for that to be eligible at all. So you can have 7 little mini expansions, and they do come with their own little ships over here, so you can get rid of the base game ships and replace them with something a little cooler, and then you're going to go ahead and utilize the base game scoring, subtract 10 points for each player, because again, these do give you a way to score extra points and more abilities, and then see how well you did in the game. That is basically how you play through Beacon Patrol, as well as Ships and Shores. Which means it's time for my review of what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which in general, this is a peaceful, calm, tile-laying game that operates well both solo and, I'll say 2 players. It's not the worst at 3, but I think once you get to 3, and 4 is even worse, but I think once you get to 3, it's not as good of a game. I think it works really well at 1, it works pretty decently at 2, but you're basically working towards building this shared board in the game and trying to see if you can build something that's going to be worth as many points as possible, and it is challenging to do so. The game starts off very, very free, like you can do whatever you want, you can just move, place a tile, it's totally fine, but you'll find that it takes more and more planning to make sure you're not spreading yourselves too thin, to make sure you're able to get done what the board needs surrounded, because it is easy to build a very large board, think you're going to score a ton of points, and then check it out at the end and be like, we scored halfway decent, if not bad. Those aren't the titles. They have titles like Cartographer and Navigator and things like that for the scoring. But basically, you can play a whole game with a giant board, think you're doing really well, and turns out you're only doing okay once all is said and done. But overall, I think it's a easy enough, peaceful tile-laying game. I think the expansions add a lot, by the way. I think the game is much improved with the expansions because they do give you a little bit more variability to the experience, and I think there are some downsides. We'll get to the downsides of the game shortly, but one of the downsides is it kind of is the same game every time you play it, and adding different abilities that are going to be both different tiles you mix in and out, as well as the abilities of those ships, that's going to keep the game a little fresher. So I'm a big fan. If you like this game at all, if you like Beacon Patrol, you should definitely be picking up Ships and Shores. I think it adds a lot more gameplay to the game. As far as things I don't like in the game, first of all, going to the expansion aspect, I never love it when I have to go through an entire stack of tiles just to remove a few tiles and then add in a few tiles. So it's a little bit, I guess, it's not the end of the world, but it's a little bit annoying to go through every game where you have to sort through the entire tile stack. Anyone who's ever had Carcassonne knows that half of you just sit there and have them all together, and you never sit there and sort through which expansions you're playing with, because that's so much extra work. And again, it's only a few minutes before you start the game, but nonetheless, I don't love that kind of situation. Even though I like the modularity of it, I don't like that aspect of it. So minor little quibble there. Past that, the game can be a little slow moving, especially at first, because since the challenging part of the game only happens as you get further into the game, that means the first part of the game does play out a little samey each time you go through it, and can be a little slow to get to the point where it feels like a more interesting challenge as you go. Additionally, I really don't like the fact that the scoring in this is beat your own score. I've never loved that in solo or cooperative games. I like, give me a win condition, give me a situation, give me a scenario, give me like, you have to play with these 3 boats and you have to get at least a 72. I can work with things like that. I like winning and losing. The problem with beat your own score is, to me, as soon as I get that top tier, which I believe is Cartographer at 56 points, but as soon as I get that top tier score, I don't feel an incentive to keep playing. I've done it. I've gotten 56, and I have gotten 56 with this, even after subtracting for players, obviously. But once you get that top tier score, it feels like, okay, I could just play again. I mean, hey, I could try new things. The Ships and Shores does give me a little bit more reason to do so. But in general, I don't like beat your score as a scoring mechanic. To me, that makes the game a game that is interesting for a short time, as opposed to the game that is interesting long term. I like win or lose, not beat your own score. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, this is the luck of the draw. The way the tiles tiles come out can definitely have an impact on your scoring. If you draw a bunch of lighthouses late game as opposed to early game, you basically set up in a situation where you're going to have a harder time capturing those points because they're all your end game tiles. And that absolutely can have an impact. If you're trying to achieve that top tier score, that certainly can have an impact. The map growing can make it feel like you can't get stuff done, which again, to me, that's the challenge. That's the part where the game actually starts picking up the interesting decisions as you feel forced in different directions. But again, you might not like that. You might enjoy the early phase of the game where it's all peaceful and putting things out, as opposed to the later phases where there's more of a challenge going on. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think it's great at higher player counts. You might have a different opinion. I just thought the game feels more and more diluted in a game that's ultimately about building a shared map together, where you have the same number of tiles either way. It just feels like you're getting less done and less agency. I think 2 players is a nice degree of teamwork. 3, and by the way, solo, I've played both solo as well as two-handed solo. I prefer two-handed solo when you're talking about the expansion specifically, because it gives you more ships in the game. Base game, I can do either one, but again, with people, with solo, with two-handed solo, all of that, I just think higher player counts is not where the game shines. As far as final thoughts on Beacon Patrol and on Ships and Shores, overall, to me, this is an enjoyable, peaceful, cooperative tile laying game. The scoring at the end, I should have added this in the things I don't like, the scoring at the end is a little bit frustrating. Not frustrating, that's the wrong word, tedious. It's a little tedious to try to go through and add everything up, and it kind of made me wish that there was an online implementation for this, and I looked and there is an online implementation. There's apparently a Steam demo out, which I haven't tried yet, but this game will be coming to Steam apparently, and I am 100% interested in playing this there. To me, this is the kind of game that does give you nice, chill vibes, and I think the accessibility of playing on a computer where it handles all the scoring, places all the things out, it sorts the tiles for you, that would absolutely be my preferred way of playing this game that gives me all the peaceful zen enjoyment of it, but without the setup and point scoring that does take away a little bit from the experience. Overall though, it is an enjoyable solo or cooperative tile laying game that I do enjoy. It's a 3.5 out of 5, and I definitely recommend the Ships and Shores expansion. I've enjoyed Beacon Patrol without the expansion, but I think the expansion certainly gave me more gameplays of it. I think my opinion of Beacon Patrol, if not for the expansion, would have been a little lower, not because of the first game, but after diving into it a few times, I would have been like, hey, I need more variety here, and the Ships and Shores does do that, so I recommend that. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, check out Carcassonne, specifically Mists of Carcassonne if you're looking for a cooperative version, although I haven't played Mists of Carcassonne, I've played Carcassonne in general, as well as a lot of expansions, but if you want a tile laying game that is more competitive as opposed to cooperative, check out Carcassonne. If you want to try Carcassonne with a cooperative, check out Mists of Carcassonne. And if you want another game that gave me those solo zen-like vibes of just building something up, watching it grow and trying to score efficiently, check out A Gentle Rain from Incredible Dream as well. In any case, and until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this video helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.